I really took a deep dive in my faith, to be honest. I just went deep into like, I believed in Jesus, but I never really like, you know, when it says following Jesus is actually turning away from sin. And so there's no, what it talks about in the Bible, it's like there's no obedience. There's no faith without obedience. So it's like I had faith about like, oh, I believe Jesus died on the cross for me, but I never really implemented it into my life. I never like was like, I'm gonna be obedient. So I was like, I wasn't sleeping around. I wasn't doing a lot of stuff. I just was kind of by myself. And
How did you make, who helped you come to that? Because I'm sure there are a lot of, and I don't mean this in a judgmental way, it's just
Right.
humanity and everyone's on their own journey. There are a lot of people who are practicing one belief or another, but as you say, it's different when you say it as opposed to actually acting within its guidelines, which are there to give you ultimate focus, right, on what's important. So when did you decide to actually move within the guidelines, and how did you find yourself away from, yeah, I believe in Jesus, but I'm going to drink or do drugs or sleep around or all these other distractions? How did you get out of that world? What was the turning point for you?
I think it was my perception of who Jesus really was, you know? I'd had really bad examples of Christians in my life who would say one thing and do another. So they were my direct example of who Jesus was.
That's why you didn't take it seriously.
I didn't take it as seriously because I didn't have good examples.
Good role models.
Yeah, and so I think the more I really looked at the character of who Jesus really was.
Did you grow up in a Christian household?
I grew up in a Christian household, yeah.
You are, am I wrong here? You are religious in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to bring this up in this day and age when people go, no, I'm not religious, I'm only spiritual. You know what the Latin root of religion is? Re-legare. And legare means to bind together. Re means again. Well, in a world that's saying I'm only spiritual because I want unity, that's exactly what religion means. And we've excluded people and we've corporatized it and such, but yes, I am religious. That character, you know, I had written stories. I'd written a college paper called John Wayne Goes West, and it was about how can you be a believer in a world of science? And I remember writing things like, during the making of that movie, like, science is the practical pursuit of God. The two are not exclusive. They dance together. They go together, belief and science. And I never saw those as contradictions. And that's part of the reason I attacked that role and became a part of that movie. I wanted to play a person that had that point of view of a believer in a world of science. Not at the exclusion of science and not at the exclusion of belief.
She's continuing to go to Bible study and she's just changing, and I don't know, there's just something about her as all this is going on. She's not pushing me anymore towards anything. She's just an unbelievable mom and an unbelievable wife. So I'm yearning to be a better husband for her. So it's the weekend and I'm getting myself into a little bit of a haze. My son's crawling on me and I can hear him faintly say, "Daddy's tired." And for the first time ever, I realize, he's 2 and he can now see that there's a difference in me. And it just hits me like a ton of bricks, like, oh my goodness, he sees it now. And of course I can flash back to remembering he got 9 months. And all these times of, I'm gonna change, it's like 2 years later, 3 years later. I can't do this anymore. It bothered me so much. Lo and behold, one day I find myself in the parking lot of Cornerstone Church. I'm drawn to this place. I know that the good Lord is trying to tell me something, and I know it's in that big building. And I said, look, I'm looking for a Bible study. The lady looks up at me, and I think she thinks at first I'm there to rob the place. This gentleman sticks his head out of his office. He's their computer guy. He says, "You can come to mine." And he goes, "Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, I'll give you directions to my house." Well, he tells me, "Look, Sean, to be a part of this Bible study, you've got to accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Would you like that?" And I said, "You know something? I think I would." He leads me in the sinner's prayer, and I just weep like a baby. This feeling comes over me that it's like, they discipled me. My life was it's never been the same. I never touched another drug. It's so funny, I came home, I'm like, oh my goodness, the greatest thing ever. I'm driving home. I come in the door. I said, honey, I know what it is. It's Jesus. I'm saved. And I tell her everything that happened. She looked at me and she goes, I know. I said, what do you mean? I said, this whole time I've been trying to figure out. She said, look, I've known all along. She said, but you needed to find this on your own. She said, I was just so worried that if I pushed you, it wouldn't happen. And then she begins to tell me how all those nights after I passed out, she'd go in the closet, she'd pray for me. You know what I mean? And of course, it is, whatever it is, 15 years later. And I still get, I'm just holding them back. I'm holding them back. When I was a horrific wretch, didn't pine away at me, she went in there, into that closet, and prayed for me. I don't think there's any greater thing you can do for somebody.
The way I look at my relationship with God and with Jesus is I'm not trying to earn God's love by doing good things. God has already loved me for who I am before I did anything to earn and deserve it. It's a free gift by accepting Jesus and just giving your life to him. And what he did is the gift. The forgiveness is the thing that we look at and, I'm going to worship you, God, because you gave me something so good. And so you live that life of like, I don't want to cheat on my wife, not because it's the right thing to do, but because I don't want to hurt her. See the difference there?
That is love.
Yeah. It's
You're putting the well-being of someone that you care about ahead of your own fallibilities and your own previous behavior.
Exactly.
And
Have you encountered difficulty expressing this in Hollywood? Hollywood is predominantly left-wing and very secular or Jewish in some circles, but it's not like a place where Christian fundamental values are espoused openly. A lot of Jewish folks are in Hollywood, and that seems to be okay with a lot of people, but some other religions, particularly if you're a fundamentalist Christian or if you have Christian values, a lot of people frown upon that. Why do you think that is, and have you had difficulties with that?
I don't know. I haven't had difficulties. I have had, and I won't throw any people under the bus, but I have had moments where I was on stage receiving an award in front of my peers in Hollywood. And there were people in the crowd that I have prayed with before dinners many times. And when I thank God, I saw some of those people go to clap, but then notice that, whoa, this could be a bad thing on my resume, and then sit back on their hands.
Oh, wow.
And I've seen people read the room and go, whoa, that wouldn't bode well for me in the future. If for getting a job or getting votes or what have you. Yeah. I have seen that. I've witnessed that. I don't judge them for it. I just wish, that it seems like a silly argument.
But as I got back on the road, it just felt purposeless, and I felt gross. And I actually, it's funny. I had a conversation with Lainey one night. We did a long distance relationship growing up a lot, and so sometimes we do better just talking on the phone. It's actually funny, but on the bus after a show one night, I was just tired of it all, and I called her, and I was hurting, and I said, tell me a story about somebody as gross as me that really changed, from your Lord and Savior,
So was she a believer?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Okay. I was curious
about
her faith story inside of this.
She was a believer our whole lives.
Okay.
And that created a lot of tension,
Sure.
in our house. And so she said Paul, and I said Paul doesn't count. I was like, he's in the manual. But Lainey had this book by Rosaria Butterfield that had just been recommended to her, and I read it that night. I read that book that night, and I connected. Our testimonies were so similar, except she had surrendered, her life to Jesus, and I hadn't. And I came home, and the first thing I did was drive up to this Barnes and Noble, and I put a hoodie on, and I didn't want anybody to see me, and I bought a Bible, and I hid it in this bag for a couple weeks. I didn't want my kids to see it because I was embarrassed. I knew they'd be like, oh. And then I finally told Lainey, I explained to the kids, and man, I just read it, and then we took Craig and Laura out at that table. I'll never forget it. I mean, I sit there all the time, and I remember I said, Craig, I believe, and I think what did you say? You said,
I was like, you believe? What do you believe? And he said, all of it. I said, I got to give you a hug. We stood up, and I mean, the biggest bear hug. I probably squeezed the lungs out of him. And then I just said, hang on a minute. I need a minute.
Yeah, I need
So
I need some
sorry.
spring rolls.
Yeah.
Could you pass those?
Dude, I walked back into that bathroom in Miso, and I just hit my knees and just worshiped the Lord. And that was one of like the greatest nights of my life.
Oh, it's really cool though. Is like that whole path and that whole journey though. And I know you push that away, and it's God and stuff like that. But God uses us to do things, and it started with you being generous and giving him a van. Like that was the catalyst for that kind of stuff.